ready, and let's go. Good morning, bonjour. Wake up. Oh, tough morning, Saturday morning. Well, how's everybody? Welcome to Multilingual Kids Live. Multilingual Kid Live. We like to talk to our folks on the Saturday morning, just saying hello. Yan! Salut Yan! Comment ça va ce samedi matin? Yes, starting Saturday. We have one little topic that I thought I'd want to share with everybody today. If you've seen my little video of Ronnie playing hockey, this little tool where he has to, within 45 seconds, get the most score possible. He got like something like 60 in that video. And it's tough. 45 seconds, getting 60. But he's got this little, his goal to get one more every time. But he's been in a slump at 62 since May 8th, about 2 weeks. And he's been practicing a lot. It's so hard. It's so hard, right? You thought it was impossible to get 63. And he got it yesterday, but he not only got 63, he got 64. Like, just out of nowhere. Got 64 instead of 63. So we're pretty happy about that. Let's see when he gets to 65. So Jan says, hey, Coos. Hello, Ronnie. You're tired, eh? What were we doing yesterday? Smoky Cat, how are you? Hope you're doing well. We've got folks coming on our different platforms on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And this is a few minutes. We'd like to... What's that? Multilingual Dad. Yoshito. The thing you made a comment on my video also where Ronnie's playing this tool, the game, the hockey tool thing. He had been in a slump for the past 2 weeks. There were times he's been practicing every day, but you're a little demotivated sometimes, huh? Thinking it's impossible, that it's so hard, getting frustrated, hitting the sticks on the ground, throwing it up in the air, right? But yesterday he finally got it. Wow, he finally got his next milestone, and even more. His next milestone was 63, but he got 64. So we're quite happy about that. And I was letting him know.
My name is Ronnie.
Oh, so your Smoky Cat is asking what your name is. So Ronnie. His name is Ronnie. So he finally took. What is the goal with this machine? Multilingual Dad.
75.
Yes. So the numerical goal is 75 by the end of the summer. But yeah, that's the record. Possibly, yeah. It's one of the records at the company that sells this machine. So it's very hard. I don't know what the world record is, but it's something in the mid-60s at this company. So. Yann Fires, continue de pratiquer, persévère, tu y arriveras. Yeah, right. So that's what we've been saying. The numerical objective in
10.
And for this tool is 75, but that's just for this tool, and I'm sure it'll help on the ice. We'll see how that goes once he gets on the ice in August. But for us, I mean, I keep telling Ronnie, this is an example of something that you will do in your life. It's an example for everything you want to do. You hit a wall, break down your objectives. It's just easier to manage pieces, and you'll get it just step by step. And so it's a big learning for life. Okay. Hi, next. Or Steven, how are you doing? Been nice to see you again to this morning. Ronnie, was it frustrating to try to communicate with your dad while he was prompting in Chinese?
What do you mean?
So is it frustrating when I'm not too sure exactly if I'm telling you to say something in Chinese? No, I think the question is simply, is it frustrating when I talk to you in Chinese?
No.
Phew! Chinese is not his strongest. What is your dad's name? Tetsu. Ask Tetsu. Is it written here? Let me see here. There you go. My name's here. Okay. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, we're doing 5 languages at home: English, French, Chinese, Japanese, and what else? Spanish. And Chinese is, probably the one that the kids master the least. But still, they talk to me in Chinese. They talk to Grandpa in Chinese because it's the language that they've always spoken to us since birth, and it's the one that feels the most natural. And that's what I always recommend parents to do. Build this communication language. Make it so, make it into a habit of speaking that language. Make it so ingrained that speaking another language feels weird. It feels strange, and that's where we are with the kids. It's not like they don't use other languages within Mandarin. We could be speaking Mandarin the whole time, but if he doesn't know a word, he'll just pick it up from English, from French, from Japanese, and that's okay. That's no problem at all. We're still speaking Mandarin, and so that's how we do it. It can be frustrating if you're when you're talking and you feel like you can't get the communication going, but that's not the situation for us. I'm assuming that's where the question comes from for Steven. Hope that I answered your question. Anybody else? Once again, shout out to everybody. Good morning from today is cloudy. It's cloudy outside. Excuse me. I think I feel like it's that season. We're getting the pollens flying around. It is the what's it called? I don't know. It's allergies, but hay fever. It's hay fever season. Can you give an example of a typical conversation? Steven 要我们来解释一下啊。那我们通常讲话的时候是怎么样？你觉得什么是一个 typical conversation? Right? So we're talking typical conversation. 你不知道是什么 conversation?
Generally.
对啊 ，typical 就是平常用的。OK。Hola 就什么 Hola？ 你怎么会跟我 Hola？ 哪里 Hola？ 哦 Hola。Mercinde español ka Spanish. Okay, hola, ¿cómo está? Hope you're doing well. Steven, how was that? Typically, we just talk like that, and then we'll pick up words as necessary if we can't find the specific words. How about the younger ones? Okay. So for those of you watching on Instagram, hello. It is on a separate phone, so you don't see the prompts, but I am putting up questions for those who are watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. The questions, they sort of pop up and I can put it up, but not on Instagram. Sorry about that. But if you want to search for Ask Tetsu on the other platforms, you could find it where, like on YouTube, you'll see that the questions come up as it goes. So Stephen is asking, how about the younger ones? Were their Japanese the strongest? Yeah. Okay. So Japanese is one of the I think, is Japanese your strongest? You think English? See, this is a weird thing. They think English is their strongest, and they have the least structured input in English. But recently the kids are speaking more English. But until recently, I would say Japanese is and still is, was and is one of their strongest. And I always think it's because it's mommy's language. Like, children really need to be able to express themselves as emotionally with mommy. That support. So I think Japanese has always been, even though they're not like formally educated in Japanese, other than the few months in Japan when they go. So yes, Japanese was, but apparently it is changing into French, which is strange because English, because I've always expected it to be French. They go to school in French here in Quebec, so I always thought Quebecer French would be their top language. It would take over somewhere along the way, but it's not been the case so far yet. Maybe it will, because school is getting more and more complex. So thank you for your help in videos. So yes, no, thank you, Mercinda, for your support and watching our videos. We do this for you. It's one of our missions to be able to spread the little that we know, the little experience that we have. If we can put it out there, and if it can help one person, which is yourself, then it's all worth it, right? We all want people. When I get interviewed, they ask me, why do you want to do all these 5 languages and make life complicated? And my answer is always the same. If we can build a better world, more tolerant world, more multilingual, multicultural, more accepting world, isn't that one step closer to world peace? Not Miss Universe, but and it isn't a selfish reason also, because that's what I want for my kids. I want them to be want them to live in a better world. So Stephen asks, do you require them to repeat everything in Chinese? What do you think? Do I require you to speak in Chinese? See, I think the question here, the wording itself is sort of strange. We don't require them. I sort of make the home environment in such a way that it's only natural for them to speak Chinese. Like it just feels right. But I don't tell them to stop using other languages if they're speaking to me in Mandarin and then they pick up a word in English or pick up a word in Japanese. They'll say something like, 我不想要勉強. 勉強, it means to study in Japanese. That's just an example. I'm not too sure if he actually says that. But whenever he loses, he whenever they don't know the specific word very quickly, they'll just very quickly pick up a word from another language, and the conversation continues. But the backbone of the conversation is still in Chinese. But I don't require them to make it 100%. Wow, people are coming in. Thank you. Still, hi everybody. Welcome to Multilingual Kids Live. We do this every Saturday. Just say hello. Start our weekend on the right foot. I see Fräulein Feuer. Oh no, that's Fraulein Feuer. Okay, so what? fire, misfire. That's in German. Fräulein is miss. Feuer is fire. So yeah. You want to learn German? You want to learn German?
Multilingual dad.
Multilingual dad. Once one is required, it might become negative. Yes. So Stephen, you don't see this, but on Instagram, I'm getting a comment about what I was talking about. So if we make things a requirement, it becomes I guess a burden. It becomes harder for the kids psychologically. So now it becomes like a burden. It's a negative connotation to it. So as much as possible, we don't do it. But if we do require them to do something, whether it's speaking a language or other studying or practicing hockey, okay. What I do is I try to make it into a game. I try to make it fun. Oh, it is hay fever season. Yeah. So I try to make it fun, make it into a challenge, and try to draw out the inner motivation so that it doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like a challenge. So yeah, I love that word. Rather than a chore or a task, it is now a challenge. 不要，我有看到了，有看到，但是宝宝现在在解释了。See, now I switched to Mandarin very naturally in the discussion when I'm addressing him, because that's just sort of natural. It just feels right. Now we're getting another comment from Cindy in Spanish. I'm Spanish. Okay, so he's Spanish. You say I'm Spanish. My wife is Turkish. We live in Turkey. Great. Then my wife and I speak in English mostly. I only speak in Spanish to my baby girl. She's now 3 months. Beautiful. Keep it up. That's how it's got to be. So you are Turkish and you speak. I mean, you're Spanish. So just go with the Spanish. It'll feel very natural, even though you live in Turkey. She will obviously get Turkish from the environment. If your wife speaks very high level of English, that could be a third language that you can introduce relatively effortlessly. So daddy can speak Spanish, mommy can speak English if she feels comfortable. No. How do you define comfortable? Is I think you should not sacrifice relationship communication for the language. So if you if speaking English makes it difficult for you to communicate really heart to heart with your child, then I don't recommend it. But if it's a very, very strong language already, then that's what I would recommend. And she'll obviously get Turkish from the community. Mesinda asked a follow-up question is when we should start with the English. As soon as possible. Whenever you can, whenever as I was mentioning, if it's your wife, then go right on ahead so that you can build that habit into your life. Make speaking English not a chore, not an academic subject, but a fact of life. Make it into a habit that makes it easy for you, both the parent and the child. Psychologically, make it into something that's just normal. And that feels normal, right? Because if you and one thing I don't recommend is switching around. Like I speak exclusively Mandarin with the children, and when I say exclusively, it doesn't mean I can't use another language in front of them. If we're speaking to the children and other people at the same time, for example, right now I'm speaking in English. He understands everything I'm saying. But it's just not our language of communication. So if I address him like I did just a few minutes ago directly, then it's in Mandarin. And that's okay, right? And they know that speaking different languages is I'm trying to say example. No, exception. Exception. Okay, so when do you start with the English? If you come back to that question, is as soon as possible. Now, if it's not your wife, like I recommended earlier, if she doesn't feel that it could be the communication language for her, then you'll introduce it elsewhere, whether it's with TV and stuff, or with daycare. You could send them to an English daycare, or hire a nanny who speaks English with them. There's various ways, but whatever the way, I think the earlier you do it, the better. Okay. So multilingual dad had a nice comment for us. Bless you, Tetsu. Ronnie, do you have friends who speak a language you don't know?
Yes.
It's a great question. So
Portugal.
Portuguese.
Portuguese.
Who speaks Portuguese? Your friends at school?
Nathan.
Oh, nice. But when he speaks, do you know if he's from Portugal or from Brazil?
Brazil.
He's from Brazil.
I don't know.
Okay. And when you hear when do you hear his Portuguese? When he speaks to his parents?
No, he just told me he speak Portuguese.
Okay. And your goalie from last year, Rafael. He's also
I know.
He's also Brazilian. But have you heard him speak with his parents?
Dad.
So when he speaks with his dad, do you understand a little bit? No, right? See, this is the funny thing. If he wrote out everything, you would probably understand most of it, because Portuguese in written form is very close to Spanish. So if you read it, you will probably understand quite a lot. But the problem is Portuguese, when spoken, is pronounced very differently. So that's why you don't understand, because when you hear, it doesn't sound like anything you know. There are things that you'll be able to catch very quickly if one day you decide to learn Portuguese. You can learn Portuguese very quickly if you want to. Okay, another follow-up comment from Mercinda is, because personally I'm worrying her Spanish won't pick up as fast as Turkish if we add another language. Thank you so much for your help. Okay, well, here's the thing. Obviously, the more languages you take up, the attention, the exposure of the child will be split amongst the different languages. That said, it doesn't mean that she cannot learn it to a very high level. So if you worry her Spanish won't pick up as fast as Turkish, well, I think at the beginning, if she's at home and she has Spanish with you, English from something else, some other input, and has minimal Turkish in her life, even though you live in Turkey, the chances are still good that her Spanish will pick up. Now, but that said, depends on how much time you spend with her. That it's really as simple as that. It's that whole exposure, and then within that whole exposure, how much of it is quality exposure. All that is very important. I mentioned earlier, my kids, until quite recently, Japanese was their strongest language. Even though we spent the majority of our time here in Canada, where there's no Japanese spoken anywhere outside of the home, their Japanese was still the top language until quite recently. So it's really how much exposure you give them, because we do 5 languages, but we're very careful with how we do it for each of the 5 languages. And you can do it. You can take a minority language in the house and make it the top language if you do it right. I guess that's all I can say about that. Hey, wake up. What do you think?
What?
So Mercinda is a Spanish daddy Turkish mommy. You know Turkey? Okay. And they live in Turkey. So Mercinda can speak Spanish to the child. That's not a problem. But he's afraid that if they give them English somehow with mommy or through another way, if they have a third language, that he's afraid that Spanish will suffer. Spanish will not be as good as the other languages. What do you think? Do you think that it's dangerous to get the children to speak a third language, English? No? You think you can do it? So, Lucinda, that's from the kid himself. He doesn't think it would be a problem. Yeah, it's about how you go about it. If the balance of the languages, it's which ones do you prioritize? What are your expectations for each of the languages? I understand. You want Spanish to be very strong. It's your first language. It's your emotional language, and you will probably, if you're making a conscious effort on it, you want that to be the strongest. That may or may not be the case. Mandarin. I wish my kids spoke Mandarin as first language because that's my language, but it doesn't have to be the case, and that's okay. That's okay. They speak 5 languages to a very, very high level, age standardized. And if one day they decide to go work in Taiwan or in China, they will be able to. It'll be a good, a very solid foundation for them to be able to integrate into society, into the social circles in Taiwan or in China. And that's enough. They may never do it. And if they don't, then, it's still okay. All right? Lucinda says, gracias. Pues de nada. Nada, espero que todo vaya bien con sus proyectos. Yoni, hello, Yoni. This is Andrade. Yes, I think this is J Honey. Yoni from Ecuador. Oh, watch out. So that's pretty much it for our time. We are half an hour into the discussion. Thank you for an active discussion. See, the kid is losing concentration. That's how it is, right? Pretty good that we've made it 30 minutes. This is our weekly live sessions, answering your questions. Thank you for a very interactive session. I hope you got something out of it. And we're going to be here every Saturday morning. And saludos, Tetsu. You are right. Yes, it is J Honey. Hope you're doing well. And Yoshi says, thank you. Have a nice weekend. Yes. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody. We've got lots of stuff coming up for us this weekend. And Ronnie's looking forward to his Chinese lesson, just by the way. He's got a Chinese lesson coming up with us. Yes. At 9:30 though.
Why didn't you tell me?
I just told you. Yes, that'll be a topic for another time. If you've not heard how we get them to voluntarily and happily take Chinese lessons. Anyways, see you next time.